Have you ever thrown yourself into a situation without fully knowing what awaits you on the other side? If you haven't, well, one day maybe it could happen to you. And if you have, well, you're in luck because this is a story of how I started working for the first time in my life. I recently turned 20, and when I turned 20, I also started celebrating. It's been 5 months or 6 since I joined a little place known as Food City. Food City is my second job in my life, my first being a Quiznos job I had way back in junior year of high school. Didn't last long. This job has lasted way longer, and I have felt that throughout the course of these past 5 or 6 months, I've gained inside knowledge as to what it means to have a job and what it means to be more responsible. Because as I've come to realize, having a job is much more than just getting paid, as I initially thought you would. It entails a whole variety of responsibilities and new perspectives you gain from being on the job. Particularly the job I have is being a cashier. And being a cashier has actually lots and lots of things you can learn from it. There is much more than meets the eye than just doing this for like 4 or 5 or 6 hours. There's much more. Get right into it. When I first applied for the job, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, as I stated before. I pretty much went in there blind. I didn't know if I was even going to get the job. Much to my surprise, as soon as I put in the application, I didn't get a call. So I said, oh, whatever, I'll stick to college. Then eventually, about a month later, I get a call, and they say, hey, we heard that you're looking to interview. We're looking to hire you. Would you like an interview? And I initially said, I'll think about it, because I was not sure if I actually wanted a cashier job, as I've heard many stories of people taking jobs on in McDonald's and not being too satisfied with their experience. But nonetheless, I needed a job. I have costs that I need to take care of. So I took the interview, and in the interview I was pretty nervous. I stated how this would be my first true job. And luckily they had a little bit of mercy on me, and they gave me a break, and I got the job. And in October, around mid-October, I started working there at Food City. I was ecstatic. I was pumped because I thought, yes, I'm going to get paid, and that's it. No, that's not the case. Well, obviously, yes, I'm going to get paid. But there's much more than just working and getting paid. There's a lot of things that come in between. There's a lot of this little gray area in the middle that makes you earn your keep where you work. And in this particular job, I learned a particular set of skills that helped me prepare for, I think, more going into adulthood. I'm more prepared than I was before I've entered this job. For example, you learn a variety of skills. One of the first skills I learned from working on the job was the act of staying calm. Because being a cashier, you interact with lots and lots of people. And not every person you interact with is going to be the nicest person. And that's okay. Because as I've come to learn, everyone's fighting their own battles, so you should generally try to be nice to them. But sometimes being nice to someone doesn't entail that they're going to be nice back to you. Because as it is, not everyone is having a great day. And that's unfortunate, but that's life. And sometimes other people give off bad energy, and it tries to come out to me, but I've learned to stay calm in every situation and handle it to the best of my ability. I think I would not have been able to handle that before I got this job. Sometimes I'll have people throw avocados aggressively at my counter or swear at me for A and B and C reason. But throughout all of it, all I have to do is just listen to them, hear them out, and not provoke them any further than they're already provoked. Because as it sows, aggressiveness only leads to more aggressiveness, and it just leads to a whole violent situation. We don't want any of that. So I've learned that staying calm in situations can be a virtue. That's something I've learned. Another thing I've learned is inflation is real. Yes, before, I remember watching the news and hearing, oh, gas is going up. The price of food is going up. And I just thought to myself, who cares? It's not real, whatever. But as I've come to learn, as with all the events going on in the East, yes, inflation is very real. Sometimes I'll see an avocado. Back then in like December or November, I used to see a bag of apples that used to 1 pound for like 50 cents. I was like, oh, outstanding. Nowadays, you put an apple on the weigher and it's $2 per pound. And I'm like, holy moly, why is it so expensive? And inflation. Going into adulthood, you're going to have a lot more expenses, and I've learned this by working there. I took a job. I took a job at a retail store to get the message through my head that the economy can affect a lot of the political news, a lot of the stock market news we see, and sometimes a lot of young folks like me, I'm only 20, we look at that stuff and say, yeah, it's whatever, it's no big deal. But working at that job, I've come to realize, oh, it's real, and it's coming fast. Lots of things are out of stock. A lot of the things that we used to have are no longer available to buy for whatever reason. When the COVID-19 pandemic started, we were all out of toilet paper. That was one of the first major events that I witnessed growing up. That was due to inflation and demand, a high demand for the item. And yes, inflation is very real. Moving on, a lot of things that I've been able to apply being a student and being a worker at a retail store is my memorization skills. Memorization skills don't come easy. When doing a lot of homework, you'll have to memorize math homework. For example, you have to memorize a lot of formulas. English, you have to memorize certain vocabulary keywords. One of my favorite vocabulary words is oxymoron. That's one of my favorites. Anyways, that's a bit off topic, but memorization comes in handy at work, especially at a retail store, because as you will notice, I will pause the video momentarily. Went across the counter to grab an apple, and you see these codes on these fruits, such as carrots, tomatoes, avocados, squash. You get the picture. All these things take codes, and every cashier has to learn these codes. There's a total of 150 codes, I believe, and when I saw those codes, I was overwhelmed. How on earth am I going to memorize all these codes? Then I remember, oh, I'm a student. I got this. I can learn. I've learned formulas. I can do this. And so it took me a while, but this hand knows a lot more codes than my brain does, and that's called muscle memory. Have you ever just been an autopilot? When you're typing an essay, sometimes you don't have to look down. You'll just be typing and looking at the screen, punching in words because your fingers are so used to the keyboard that you don't have to look down anymore. That's muscle memory. That's another great thing that I got from work, muscle memory. Moving on, the next thing I learned was coworkers. Coworkers are special because they're the people you're going to be seeing the most each day. Obviously, you have customers that you're going to see online every day. Sometimes you even see a couple of familiar faces, such as friends, family, etc. But coworkers are the gears that hold the factory, that is the grocery market, together. They're the people you're going to have to confide to, your managers, your coworkers. They're going to be the special ones you're going to go to when you need help. When I started, I cannot stress this enough, I am very thankful for my coworkers taking the time to put up with my non-awareness and not having the best set of mind going into work. I was fresh. I was a bit reckless when it came to scanning things, and they would let me know. They were patient, and they taught me the ropes. I'm very grateful for that. And once now that I'm 5 or 6 months in, I got the hang of it. I'm putting in codes, I'm talking to customers, and I see someone new come in, and I get reminded I should probably pay that forward, because coworkers are people who always are there for you. Well, they should be there for you if they can, but they're there for you. They teach you, they're there to guide you. I was someone new. They didn't have to do that, but they taught me how to do it, and they're very nice, and they're just very open-going people. As a matter of fact, I was talking to a coworker before I came home to do this, and they're like, "Hey, what if you talk about work?" And I said, "Oh, that's a brilliant idea. Let's talk about work." And here I am in my room after work talking about work and relating it to how this experience has been teaching me new things every day. Another thing I learned from coworkers is coworkers come and go. It's just a sad truth, but it's also learned to not get overly attached to people. That's just the way life is. Something that starts must one day end, and that's a lot of the relationships I've seen at work. Some coworkers were really friendly. I love interacting with them, but once they were gone, I felt like an empty void. But such is life. Life goes on, and we have to learn to take the best of what we got from them and move on. Anyways, it's such a bit of a somber note, but moving on, going on to my next virtue, accidents happen. A lot of accidents have been very easily avoidable, but in my early days, I was a bit reckless, as I said. I remember this experience of grabbing cactus, because we saw cactus leaves at Food City. They were on my tray. I did not see what they were. I assumed it was something like green bananas, and so I grab them. I put them on my thing, and I realize, what am I grabbing? And then I look at my hand, and I have a bunch of like thorns stuck in me. I'm like, it's painful, and the customer is just laughing at me. Okay, at the moment I was a bit upset they were laughing, but now I can obviously laugh because I can laugh at past experiences, and that's just something careless to do. Another memory I have of being reckless is we have to carry these little pallets of water around the store, and we have to stack them properly. But when I was starting there, I just grabbed the waters were already stacked, but they were stacked very, very dangerously where they would tip over and fall. And being the new employee that I was at the time, I just grabbed the power jack and started stretching it across the store without organizing them properly, and boom, they just fell over and hit all the floor, and this like gigantic noise just occurred. Everyone's staring at me. I'm like, oh no, what's going on? So that taught me to be very careful with what I'm doing. Another thing is, I was given this work box cutter. It's very handy, but I've also learned I should be very careful when opening boxes. You should be patient, because if you open the box too fast, you might cut the items inside. When I started, I opened up this box full of oil, and I ended up cutting through the box and through the oil plastic, and that just ended up causing a gigantic spill everywhere. And I'm like, oh man. And my manager looked at me, he said, see, that's why you gotta be careful. You gotta take your time with it. Safety first. Yes, the items are ruined, but I'm glad you didn't cut yourself with this in this situation. So yes, being at work also means staying very safe. That's something very important to keep in mind. Another thing, going back to the rude customers I talked about earlier and how it relates to staying calm in situations. Another thing, the vice versa situation would be just being nice to people in general, because every time someone comes up, you don't know what they're going through, and the polite thing to say is, how's your day going? Or how are you? Or did you find everything okay? Just something to let them know that you're there for them, because everyone needs a helping hand in life. It's just good to reach out to people and let them know that you're happy to see them, because you don't know what everyone's going through. So it's just nice to have someone say, how's your day, sir? How's your day, ma'am? Or can I help you with anything, ma'am? It's a good way to pay it forward. Speaking of paying it forward, I've also seen plenty of customers where they're short on like 5 or 10 cents, and they get really, oh, I don't think I have it. And most of the time, yes. Even the store policy is we're not allowed to technically hand out money, obviously. But I've been told that it's just like 5 or 6 cents, and someone previous has just left money behind that they didn't want. The nice, courteous things to do is just say, I'll cover it, ma'am, don't worry about it, or I'll cover it, sir, don't worry about it. That's something I've found very endearing, because a lot of people in these times need help. Another thing that touches my heart is when someone who's trying to pay and they can't pay, they're forced to leave all their stuff, and the person behind them says, I'll cover it. That's something that's very special, and it reminds me that humans their default setting is to help each other and to be kind to one another, because in these pressing times, we need people to be nice to each other and help each other, give a lending hand, and gives us courage and words that keep us going. And just that small act of saying, I'll give you $1 or $2 from the person behind, it touches me, and it wants to make me pay it forward. That's something else that I've picked up on at the workplace. Lastly, the thing I got the most from work is just to have fun, but also be very careful with what you're doing, because if you're having too much fun, you might cause a bit of a conundrum and cause harm to others. So you always got to be very careful with what you're doing. In conclusion, when I started this job, I did not know what I was getting myself into. I thought I was just going to go and do this all day, but there is so much more than meets the eye to a cashier. A cashier has to be calm. They have to be patient. They have to be careful. They have to make sure that they're greeting the people correctly, and make sure that the people who are going after them don't receive the same treatment they're giving you, even though it's rude. You should not respond to rudeness with rudeness. It's just going to lead to even more of a chaos struggle, and we don't want that in the store. There's plenty of things, like for example, calmness. The inflation is real. Good memory, muscle memory, because I'm a student. It's coming very handy in work. Teamwork with coworkers, safety, and most my favorite important is compassion and kindness that comes from seeing lots of people just go about their everyday life, because everyone has their own story to tell at the workplace, and you never know when just by saying have a good one or have a good night, it's going to make someone's day. That's just something special that I like to say every time someone leaves at work at Food City. Well, that was my 2 cents on what it means to have a job and some of the skills you can get from being a cashier. I hope you found this entertaining, or informative at least, for anyone who wants to get a job or was wondering what it's like to be a cashier. Thank you very much and have a good night.